Hi, everyone. This morning I'm joined by Megan with Birth Your Way Services in Columbus, Ohio. If you want to kind of tell us a little bit about what you do and kind of your company, and then I'll dive in with some questions if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm a doula. I live just south of Columbus, so I serve all of Columbus as well as some rural areas down here south of Columbus. And basically I'm just out here trying to teach people about childbirth and pregnancy, and I really like to focus in on the health aspects of pregnancy. I feel like that's really important, especially for a lot of the outcomes that people are looking for. um, I got driven into this work basically from my own births, but then also learning more and more about kind of the atrocious healthcare system that we have right now, and helping people sort of navigate that and trying to help them get the births that they're hoping for.
And so tell me a little bit about you, because your story sounds similar to how I got into newborn photography, and it was with my own children's birth. So tell me a little bit about that. Like what did you experience and like what made you want to kind of look into this further?
Yeah, I mean, so even before I started having babies, my interest was always in having babies. Watched The Business of Being Born. I feel like a lot of us were initiated into like the system and how it works with that documentary back in, I don't even know, like 2009. Even that
It,
was
what was the
um
documentary?
it's called The Business of Being Born.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there's like some statistics in there and stuff. They're a little bit outdated and like,
Sure.
um, but the idea behind it is it's pretty basic, and it still applies to most situations, especially in rural Ohio. But even within Columbus, like you go into the hospital, like even before you get to the hospital in labor, they're talking to you about induction, and you agree to induction, and the contractions are too difficult. So then they talk you into the epidural, and it doesn't set right, or you have bad reaction from that, and you end up in a C-section. So this is the what do they call it, cascade of interventions is what they call it
Okay.
in that documentary. So that was my first sort of light bulb moment, like, oh, because really when you go into having a baby, unless somebody's talked to you about this stuff, you assume that your doctor has your best interest at heart, and they probably do. They're just not necessarily going about it in a way that serves how you would like to give birth, and really the way that this serves you best, I guess.
Sure. Well, and
So
everybody, right, everyone's a little different in what they are looking for. And
mhm.
then doctors probably have a set number of things that they just use with everybody, right? Like suggestion, they suggest the same things to every person, even though every person is different in what they want. Is that right?
That's really, yes. So I started into birth work with like this anti-doctor, like, oh my gosh, they're all terrible, like we need to fight the system sort of idea. And then working through it, I started doula work in, 2019, 2020. Um, Working through it since then, it's been more like, okay, I really actually see the pressure that's put on our system, our medical system. And I also see that our pregnant folks should not have to be taking the brunt of that pressure. So it's sort of this balance of like, yes, we need these doctors for these interventions that they are so good at. And also, like, let's please not impose those interventions on every single person because we don't
Yeah.
all want them. So that having my own babies, experiencing having a baby in the hospital with a midwife, having a baby at home by myself, like having that range of experience, and then also seeing birth after birth, and seeing, because my birth, thank goodness, did not end up in that cascade of interventions that I did not want. But I have seen it happen. I've been to births and I've seen it happen time and again in our city, in the hospitals that we have here. And so this isn't just some faraway thing that's happening at select hospitals that have care that's like this. This is here. So yeah, I could go on.
No, I love it. And so when you were you kind of when you went into your births, did you know what you want, or did your birth kind of like spur this, oh, I need to learn about this more? Like which came first, I guess.
Yeah. So, like I said, before I even started having babies, I sort of started with that documentary, and it kind of like, you know,
So you had
gave
some
me,
ideas going into your pregnancy, what
I
you
had
kind
the
of
idea
wanted.
that like, okay, there's a lot that I don't know. Cause you're not gonna watch one documentary and know how to
Right,
give
right.
birth in the system, right? But
Yeah.
it triggered me into this like, okay, when I get pregnant, I'm gonna need a lot more
Okay.
information. So when I got pregnant, I signed up for, it was like the Bradley method class. But like literally any outside of hospital childbirth class is going to be better than nothing. So anyway, I signed up for this. I think it was an 8-week class or something. We showed up once a week for 3 hours a night. It was exhausting. I don't remember
Yeah.
half the stuff that I learned there, but my husband was there with me, which was great because he does remember things. So I signed up for the class, and then within the class learned about doulas and was like, oh yeah, I would love to have somebody there with me. And I was also reading on my own. So like I had a pile of books like this that I was just,
Mhm.
I don't know if I even finished one of them, but like I was reading, right? I was like trying to put as much information in my head as possible, um, to just do it the best that I could. And that's really kind of how I counsel my clients too. I'm like, you're not going to be able to learn all the stuff in like this 7 to 8
Yeah, you're
month.
limited on time.
Yeah, right. So like having a class is super because they like organize it in a way where they can like present it. It's still a lot of information. You're probably not going to remember all of it, but it helps you to build a birth plan so that you can
Yeah.
communicate with your team. It's so funny that we're talking about this because I'm actually building a childbirth class right now
Oh,
for
that's
July.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Um,
side note, real quick, because I don't want you to forget or me forget. I send home welcome boxes to anyone who books a newborn or a maternity session with me. And in there I do put like flyers from I've got different like a hair and makeup artist. I think another doula, yoga, um, just different things that like resources. So if you want to give me either a business card or a flyer or a coupon, I'd be happy to throw it in there.
yeah,
And then I just put like how to prepare for their session, things like that.
cool.
And then little like actual helpful things too, like lavender lotions and just things that to
Yeah,
pamper mom.
that's nice.
So if you want to send me any flyers or anything to put in there, I'd be happy to throw them in the box as well for especially maternity clients who may
Yeah,
be looking for that. So yeah.
awesome. I love that.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, that's awesome that you're building classes for that. So and maybe that would be a way for more people to learn about you as well. And then I can and send me your link and I can link it on my resources too. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm planning on, so that's like a paid childbirth class. I recently did a birth basics class. It's 1 hour talking about how to advocate for yourself. And those are free. I'm trying to set up sort of a few of those like around too. So
that's amazing.
anyway.
Yeah, and send me any links you have and I'll be happy to share them in all my groups. So,
Oh, cool.
um,
Thanks.
yeah, so then you did have a doula with your own births?
Yeah, I did. And she was actually super new. When I hired her, she hadn't attended any births, but she had
Oh,
two births
wow.
scheduled before mine. So I was like, okay, I mean, that should be enough. And she had 6 kids of her own. And that was really what got me. I was like, she has 6 kids of her own. She's had 6 totally different birth experiences.
Yeah,
So aside from attending these 2 births as a doula, she's going to have that experience too. And really, that was the thing that like mentally it just helped having her there, and
yeah,
she had this presence about her that was just like very calm. Like I could forget that she was there, and it didn't even bother me that there was like pretty much a stranger in the room with me. Like I'd met her like 2 other times before
yeah,
the birth, but it was just like she was just a wonderful, like she was there, she was consistent with me. My birth was 48 hours long. And so I mean she did go home, for a while.
yeah.
So part of my birth story is that I was 2 centimeters for a long time, two
Wow.
centimeters. Yeah. So my midwife was finally like, okay, take this Adderall, go home and go to sleep. And I was like, at first, like very much like, I don't want medication. I don't want that. And they were very patient with me. And they were like, no, 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 go home. And I'm like, okay. So then my doula
Yeah,
went
because you're gonna
home.
need energy eventually.
They were right. They were right. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And this midwife that I got actually was the one midwife I didn't want. She was very heavy-handed, sort of aggressive as I described her, but in the moment, she's exactly what I needed, which was like, yo, I need you to go home and go to sleep right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's not even
Wow.
that we need this room or like anything like that. Like, you need to go home. Like, I've experienced this. She also had several kids and long labors. So it was just this wonderful group of people that like had all these different kinds of labors before me, and just I could trust them more, even like even more than somebody who has all the experience and the knows all the pain relief techniques and understands the physiology of birth and all of that. It's great. I need that around. But like, the most important thing to me was that I had these people around who had seen this before and could
Mhm.
say, this is what you need to
What
do
you
right
need,
now. I
yeah.
know for sure. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
And then were you able to push yourself or go to C-section? What happened at the end of 48 hours?
Oh yeah, I had a vaginal birth with that baby. And you know, it was a lot of most people go straight to like the pushing part when they're wanting to know about birth. Like, is it gonna hurt? How do I position
Sure.
myself and all of this stuff? But like, literally that was a blip in my labor. It
Yeah.
was really hard because I was exhausted. And eventually my husband, he was sitting there and he's also like starving and tired and about to pass out and like trying to support me. And finally my husband was just goes, get angry. And he told me just get angry. And like that's what just like the emotion that I needed to propel myself to just
That's
push
fine. Yeah.
like I needed to. Now, I mean, as a doula now and knowing what I know, would I have pushed different? Probably.
Mhm.
But like it, those are the experiences that I pull from when I'm supporting other people, you
Yeah.
know. I know how exhausted I was, and I know that I probably would not have been able or willing to change into another position at that point. So it was just like, this is how I'm pushing. So yeah,
So
I
when
go
so
ahead.
how does that affect how you are helping others now? Do you encourage them to change positions and like tell them this is going to help you? Like I've been there. Like how does that change how you help people?
Oh, it really depends on like so many factors. Like, it's also nuanced. Like even how I support somebody prenatally all the way up to like having the baby in postpartum. But you know, in general, I'm reading them. Like, you know, do I think that they have enough energy? Do they even have enough energy to like hear what I'm saying to
Yeah.
them right now? Um, you know, and it usually falls back on them. I usually just say, "Hey, we have some things that we can try. Do you want to try?" And that's like that's it. Now, I have a client right now who straight up told me like, "You can't be soft with me. You're just gonna have to tell me to do stuff." And like, those are my favorite kind of clients because like,
Yeah.
tell me straight up what you need and I will do that for you. So with that particular client, I would probably be like, hey, you need to get up on your hands and knees, or hey, let's turn onto your side, or like whatever I feel like she's like capable of physically and mentally at the time, like, you know, let's try that. You know, I'm also working from a place of like I've had a lot of like spinning babies, and there's a body ready method is another training that I'm done and currently doing that kind of teaches you how the pelvis works and all of these things and how to position for, I don't want to say easy pushing, but like the
Right.
easiest possible situation
Yeah.
and the least likely to deal with things like shoulder dystocia and tearing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So also keeping those things in mind, but like first and foremost, it's always like, what do I feel like this person can handle right now? And it's usually like, I know you can do this. Like, let's just get your head wrapped around it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It and so much like when you're talking about that experience, it made me think of my own, So I've had two kids, um, and it was funny because I did want an epidural, so that was just I definitely wanted one. But the first time when I sat up to get the epidural, it was so much relief to move positions.
Yeah.
But by then it was like too late, like baby's coming. And so
Yeah.
the second time then I knew I need to sit up because I knew it felt better. I knew and I requested the yoga ball and like, I knew exactly what I needed to do
Yeah.
based on just that one little moment sitting up in the first time, but no one had suggested that to me. And so
Hmm.
the second time it was much smoother. And I mean, both were very smooth. I mean, I had very short labors and deliveries. But the second time it was just much more in my control and
Short
advocating
deliveries
for
can
myself.
be, yeah, short deliveries can be intense and overwhelming. And like
Yeah, it definitely
everybody
was.
wishes for that short labor, and you're just
But
like,
yeah, those because mine was 2 hours first contraction to delivery. And then they're so intense and they don't stop that, yeah, it's
yeah.
something. But I
Yeah, I
knew
teach
I
about
need the
that.
yoga ball, I need to sit up.
Uh-huh. I teach about that break between contractions, and I always like I put the caveat in there, like, unless you have a precipitous labor. Like, and then there's just gonna be bam, 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 bam. And you know that you're having precipitous labor because there's no break in
There was no
between.
break. Like it was funny because I had my water hadn't broken yet, thankfully. I was 9 centimeters and or no, I was fully dilated at this point, 10 centimeters, and I still wanted the epidural because I didn't want to push without it. And he's like, well, I'm gonna wait till till there's a break. And I'm like, no, just do it. Because I knew there wasn't gonna be one. I'm like,
There's
I
no breaks.
promise I will sit still. I promise. And
That's
I did.
amazing that you could sit still, honestly. Cause I mean, like yeah, it can be hard even if you're only having one like every 2 to 5 minutes to sit still long enough to get an epidural. So yeah,
Yeah. I'm like,
that's
there's not
impressive.
gonna be a break, dude. You're gonna have to just do it. So, and yeah, as soon as he put the needle in, my water broke. So, but that's one of the things I love talking to my clients about is everyone's story is so different. Even my own too.
Yeah.
They're so different. One,
Hmm.
my water broke and that's how I knew I was in labor, and the other, it never broke till 10 centimeters. Like they're all so different. And I'm sure that's true for you too. Like that's part of why you love it. Like everyone's just so unique. And I ask every one of my newborn clients, their moms, like, tell me about how it went, and they're all so different. I love
Yeah.
that part. So yeah, so people find you for doula services and then for these pregnancy classes. How many clients can you take on per month? Because I know there's like some overlap of like, because you don't know when they're going to go into labor. So how many people can you
Yeah.
help at a time?
I mean, uh, I I can be kind of a pushover. So I like to limit to four. Um, typically, I mean, any given month it could be like 1 to 4. Um, June, for example, like for some, I don't know if there's a bunch of doulas on vacation or what. Like everybody's
It's
like
busy.
reaching out about June. Um, so sometimes depending on the situation, I might make an exception. So I like to work with people a lot prenatally, um, to hopefully shorten labors, to like make sure they're just like having a healthy, comfortable pregnancy. And also obviously birth planning and preparing for all of that stuff.
Sure.
So also have to keep that in mind. So 4 is ideal.
Yeah, like 4 months.
If I have 5 or 6, that's like once a year maybe, and I have backups, amazing backups. Um, in the case that were,
That they
if
two
anybody
people
were to
are
pull
going
one
out.
up. Yeah. But I mean, I have great doula mentors, one of which literally just had like 6 births in 2 weeks that she went to. And she did it. It was all her. So like I see what can be possible.
Mhm.
And I also see like, okay, but maybe once a year for something like that. 'Cause I
You're
don't
right. Yeah. Well,
know.
because I mean, not even only worrying about overlap, but it's exhausting for you too, I imagine, if it's going to be a long birth and if you
Yeah.
have those back to back, like there's no time for you to rest as well, I imagine.
Yeah. And I mean, we go through it. Like, we talk about, like, hey, this is probably the best time to call me so that I'm going to be at my best all the way through your birth. Um, and also I take care of myself, right? So I'm trying to eat well. I'm trying to make sure that I'm exercising and things so that when I have these like gaps in time where I'm pushing myself really hard to stay awake and do physical activity, I'm ready to do
You're
that. And,
ready.
you
Yeah,
know, yeah.
that's good. And how far out should people reach out to you to get on your schedule?
I I mean, I love all my clients. I love people who reach out like super early. There's even people that are like, I'm not even pregnant yet, but like, can you tell me about your services? And I'm just like, yes. Not only because like it gives me a lot of time to work with them. And because like I said, I'm working on things like nutrition and movement to do during pregnancy to
Hmm.
prepare the body for birth, to help prevent those like late pregnancy symptoms and complications that can happen. So like the earlier you reach out, the better.
Or you can
Also,
help
even
them.
if
Yeah.
like like you're 6 weeks and maybe you don't want to start my stuff yet, I have lots of resources for of people that like you should also be seeing. Like
Sure.
chiropractors and yoga instructors and this amazing nutritionist in Columbus. Like, so if you are like, I know that I need to get really specific with nutrition, and maybe you have an eating disorder, or maybe you have past trauma you need to work through. Like, we're getting you to specialists for people, about that first. So, I mean, and that's a huge role of a doula. Pretty much any doula is going to be able to refer you to other specialists um, who can help you out with stuff like that. And it gives them time, if you don't have the money to just pay out of pocket 2 months before your baby's going to be born, it gives you time to like pay over time, which is a
Yeah,
big
that's
deal
smart.
because HSA covers it. But if you don't have HSA, like
Yeah,
you might get lucky and your insurance might cover some of it. But yeah, there's that
right.
part too.
Yeah, and I was gonna bring that up too, that you're providing such an amazing service, and I know that doesn't come cheap is what people, I know
Yeah.
it's worth it and that it's actually not overpriced. But when you see those posts about like, who doesn't charge an arm and a leg and they really have no idea what it takes, what
Yeah,
should
really.
someone expect for just a ballpark for a doula services when you're providing so much from prenatal
Yeah.
all the way through? What should they expect to pay for a doula?
Yeah, so I actually just learned recently that for the amount of experience that I have and the services that I'm offering, I'm actually kind of not probably charging
That
as
doesn't
much as I
surprise me.
could.
Yeah, yeah.
How about that? I do feel like I'm charging enough. I just money's weird. But anyway,
It's the
uh
same with photography. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I would just like to preface with that there are so many different types of doulas and we all work different kinds of ways and we all have different kinds of experience because when you're looking at it, you're going to see people charging anywhere from like $750 to like $3,000.
Hmm.
And so it really comes down to what do you value in a doula, and you have to just choose that doula.
Yeah.
Um Typically somebody who's charging something like 750, um they think that they need to charge that in order to get their first few clients. um yeah, so
Yeah.
that might be like a
They,
newer doula, or it
yeah.
could just be somebody who like they're in a position where they don't have to charge. I don't know.
Yeah. That's very similar to photography. Yep. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I say the same thing, like you need to hire the one that you connect with and that you
yeah.
like and
Hmm.
not worry so much about, $200 difference or whatever it is. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's the same way. Yeah. And I'm like, you're hiring someone to handle your baby. Like, don't take this lightly. So, yeah,
Yeah. And
insane.
I want to be clear. Postpartum doulas handle babies, but birth doulas handle moms and birthing persons.
Yeah.
Like for real. Like
Yeah.
I
No, I was talking
love
about
babies.
photography. Like, I'm handling your baby. Like, choose
Yeah.
carefully. Yeah. And
Oh,
same
you're
with,
yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
yeah. And so, and same for
Yes.
you. Like, you're handling their health, the mom, you're taking care of them in this like thing they've never, most of them probably have never done before.
Right.
And you don't want to just hire someone based on a low cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I meant. Like, I can't believe when some people say they're going with someone new for their newborn
Yeah.
photography when, you're putting your little baby in their hands and they've never
Mm-hmm.
done it before. That kind of thing. Same with doula, I think.
Yeah. And on
Yeah.
the other side of that, like I want people to hire me that value what I'm going to give to them, not because
Sure.
I'm charging a low price.
Yeah.
Um, I've charged low prices before. And
Yeah.
sometimes it works out, but most of the time I folks just don't get the full like breadth of what I can offer them because they're just not they don't necessarily want to hear about the nutrition part. They don't necessarily want to hear about what kind of movements and like lifestyle tweaks that they can do. Which to each their own. But that's not my ideal client. So I want to attract
Yeah,
people
that
who
makes
want
sense.
those things. So I
So
charge for
you're,
it.
yeah, so you're offering so much more value across months and months. Whereas some people, when they're looking for a doula, in their mind, they're thinking
Mhm.
just the birthing day. Is that kind of
Yeah, and I mean, I
like,
have a package like that where it's like you just want to meet me once and we show up. I show up the day of your birth, like that's fine, but then the expectation is drawn, like
yeah, right. It's a
you know,
different. Hmm.
yeah. But my main package that I really love offering is, for people who are having first babies, for people who want a totally different experience than their last experience, and for me, and the way that I help facilitate that is through nutrition and movement and birth planning. I feel like birth planning is the obvious one, so I haven't really been saying that one as much, but like also with birth planning and just learning how to advocate for what you want during the birth time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know during COVID that was a whole different thing, but
Mm.
are there some hospitals that are in like birthing centers that are easier and more welcoming of you, or do you run into any problems when it's time to like, hey, I'm here for my client, you need to let me in? Like, do you run into anything like that?
Um, it depends on what kind of birth the person wants. If somebody is like, I know that I'm gonna want to get induced if I am not in labor by 40 weeks. I know that I'm gonna want an epidural and I'm totally cool to C-section. Like honestly, like they're like, I'm fine with all this.
Hmm.
Ohio Health, any of the Ohio Health hospitals within Columbus, go for it. Like,
Yeah.
but if you're looking for an unmedicated vaginal birth, and for the most part just kind of want to be left alone, um, I would avoid Ohio Health just because the first scenario I gave you is kind of their bread and butter. It's like their protocol. Like this is what
Yeah.
they do normally. Um, and the doctors there tend to be less patient with the time that it can take to have a vaginal unmedicated birth.
Hmm.
Um, Mount Carmel, it is my number one choice for somebody wanting, and the reason that it's my number one choice is, first of all, I've attended excellent births there. Um and the providers are wonderful. They love attending unmedicated birth. And honestly, if I was in a doctor or a midwife, like that would be my jam because most of the time you don't have to do anything. Like you just don't. Like you're
Yeah.
just, maybe intermittent monitoring every 30 minutes, but your nurses are doing that. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
And
blows my mind like
are they
how
welcome? Oh, go ahead. How what?
it, it blows my mind how like complicated some providers make it. I'm like, no, like you don't have to nothing. You don't even have to come in here. Like just don't. Um But yeah, and then Mount Carmel is the hospital that home birth midwives are like, they love transferring to, because they just, yeah, they're just, they get it. They're collaborative. They love having doulas there.
That's what
They
I was
love
going to ask.
that.
Are
Yeah.
they welcoming of doulas to come in?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
absolutely. Yes. Now, it's still a hospital, right?
Sure. Yep.
But you don't run into things like, nurses not being super sure about how to handle it when a doula tells a client, you actually don't have to do that. Like,
Mm.
I have had a nurse within the Ohio health system where I had a client who started to push squatting next to the bed, and she was like, "Oh no, you're gonna have to get into the bed." And I was like, "You don't have to do that." And the nurse was not happy about that.
Yeah. What
um,
happened with that client? Was she able to stay where she was comfortable?
well, she made the choice after I told her that she could stay there. And actually, so basically I said, you can stay here. And while she was saying like, no, I'd rather be in the bed, the nurse was kind of coming at me. So, I mean, it was fine for the nurse anyway. But so that particular client thrived in the bed. She was comfortable there. She wanted to be there. Like, I'm not there to force anyone to have any kind of birth. I'm only there to be like, hey, just so you know what they just said, you don't actually have to
You
do that.
have some options. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and then I had another situation. These are literally two situations out of all the situations I've had,
Sure.
since I started dueling, that were kind of like this. But I had a doctor kind of aggressively come in the room, and my client had just fallen asleep, and um the husband was like, well, hey, what's going on? And he was like, clearly like go over there and like talk to her. And the husband was like, oh, what's going on? And um he wanted to break her water. That's what it was. He's like, we need to break her water. Like, we need to get this going right now. Um and I just looked at him and I said, why? And he did not like that. So yes, I mean, there are abusive, just like, doctors who think that they're just like the top of the hierarchy, and like
Mhm.
everyone should just be listening to them, and like there are certain situations where that is absolutely true. um but there are some situations where you can tell doctors just are getting impatient. And this
Sure.
particular doctor, he was nervous, but I was like, she just fell asleep, can we
Let her rest a little
can we give
bit.
her some time first? And he kind of stormed out of the room, and she got to sleep. But yeah, it, I don't like to tell stories like that because they really are few and far between.
That's good.
I think that the takeaway is just making sure that you're having a birth in a facility with a provider who support the kind of birth that you want. If you want all the interventions, like, I will recommend this guy 100% because he will do all the interventions happily.
Yeah.
He wants to. Like, he's
Yeah. Yeah.
ready. He wants, it's like a if you're hiring an OB for your birth, you're hiring a surgeon for your birth. And so you have to understand that there's always that underlying, like, surgeons love doing surgery. Like,
Right.
they
Yeah.
love, so like, if you end up needing them for that, like, you're in great hands. Every time somebody goes back for a C-section, I'm like, honey, you are in great hands. They
Yeah.
know what they're doing. This is why you are here, so that if you needed this, they were there for you. I have
Yeah.
no doubts in my mind that this person's going to take care of you. But if you're going in wanting an unmedicated birth, you're gonna have to fight for it. Like, and
Yeah.
and your doula can help you, but at the end of the day, it's your yes or no that they need to hear.
I think that's having that doula would be because I didn't have a doula because I did, I was still at the beginning of learning all this at the time,
Sure.
and I had very easy.
I was gonna say a 2 hour
It
labor. I don't
didn't
know if
really
they would.
need it, um, but having somebody there when because when you're in that state, you trust that all the professionals that come in know what they're doing and like,
Hmm.
but having somebody else say, "Hey, you've got this option,
Yeah.
why don't you try it?" would be so valuable. Like if I would have had my second experience the first time, somebody saying, "Hey, why don't you sit up and see how you feel then?" Or why don't you bounce in the ball? Like,
Yep.
just having somebody there to say you've got some choices instead of just relying on everything that they're telling you, I think
Hmm.
would be amazing. Um, so now, are there, just if you want to, you don't have to, do you want to shout out any doctors who have been wonderful to work with, or are there any other providers or professionals or whoever? Is there anyone that you would like to recommend? And if not, I can cut this part out.
That's
I just want
okay.
to
I'm
make
gonna
sure I
bring up
give
my
you
list because I don't want to forget anybody.
Okay, I just want to make sure I give you that chance because if there are some who have been like wonderful, I want to make sure that they're noted as
Yes.
well.
So we have Dr. Rouse,
Oh, she delivered one of my babies. She's
Dr.
the
Rans, yeah,
she was the
Dr.
second
Ransom.
one who,
Yes.
and then she let me labor as long as I wanted. And then
Yes.
when I got the epidural, she's like, "This is perfect. You labored and now you don't have to feel the pushing." And she was amazing.
Yeah, she totally understands. Like, she's totally that doctor that's like, whatever you want.
Yeah,
And if there's a
I
problem,
very
I'll
much
let you
felt that.
know and we'll talk through it and we'll figure it out. Right.
Yeah,
Like, she's not just going to let you, it's not like vaginal unmedicated birth or bust. You know what I mean? Like, she's going to have conversations with you if there's complications, but yeah.
yeah,
And
she was
then,
very
so then we
sweet.
have Dr. Ransom. All of these people are like this. Um, Midwife Bethany Wait, sorry. And then Dr. Murnane, which
Renan,
I'm
he's
not
mine.
sure is still active.
Yeah, he's my doctor.
Okay.
So yeah, he is. Yep.
So all wonderful providers, all providers perfectly capable of and absolutely wonderful about handling complication, but leaving the thing alone, and honoring birth choices. So like I said, if somebody wants an unmedicated vaginal birth, all right, let's do that. Somebody decides they want the epidural, all right, let's do that. But their nurses are not coming in every freaking 15 minutes, 30 minutes. All right, you ready for the epidural? You ready for the epidural? Let's start some Pitocin. Like,
Hmm.
the doctors are important because they're like behind the scenes, sort of like telling their nurses to do things. But your nurses are, I would say, almost even more important. That's why, like, when I
Oh yeah.
recommend providers, it's sort of like, yes, have this provider, but like, understand that giving birth at the correct facility is also going to benefit you because you need great nurses. You just
Oh
do.
yeah. I still remember. I wish I got her last name or something to send her. Thank you. Stephanie was her name. My first delivery, and she was amazing. And like you said, you don't really see the doctor till
Nope.
push come, it's time. And yeah, she was incredible.
Hmm.
Yeah, I loved her.
Yeah. So I mean, like, and these doctors are, as far as I can tell, um, fabulous to their nurses. So then that's reciprocated, right? Your nurse
Sure.
isn't stressed out and trying to like ground themselves before they come in the room to come, you know, be your rock. Because nurses, like, I've had nurses where like I'm trying to help somebody out of a panic attack and I'm trying all of my strategies and it's not working. And I had a nurse come in one time and was just like, look at me. And like, that's all my client needed was just to see their nurse and like have their nurse talk them down. And like, so like nurses and doulas work together beautifully.
Oh,
If
that's
if the
wonderful.
nurses like doulas and are willing to work with the doula for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So if people want to learn more about you or reach out, your website, and I'll pull it up here so that they can see. Let me see. Oh, I'll do screen. All right. So here's your Facebook page, right?
Yeah,
So Birth Your Way Columbus, and then website is birthyourwayservices.com. Is that right?
that's right.
And then you've got all the information you need here, so you can reach out to Megan.
Yeah.
A little bit about you. So, and how old are your kids now?
Oh boy. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Fun, fun. I have a
Makes me
9-year-old, but
sad.
an 11-year-old.
How old are yours?
9 and 11.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. You're like, it's like,
I know. Freaks you out, right?
and then
Well,
Facebook is horrible because they send you the memories or like the
oh,
timeline, and you're just like, nobody warned me that they were gonna do this.
I know. Well, and sometimes I'm like, it makes me sad because it'll be like some status I put and I don't remember that happening. Like something my kid said and that I like
Mhm.
get all sad, like because it makes me think, what else have I forgotten that they did, you know? And it's like, I'm glad for the memory. I'm glad it's
Yeah.
a reminder of that happening, but also it's like it's bittersweet for sure because
Yes.
our brains can't hold all the memories and
We were
it's
busy
just
bombing.
sad. Yeah, it's just sad that it just slips away,
Yeah.
gone. So, all
Mhm.
right. Well, thank you. Is there anything, any last minute things you want to share? This has been very informative, by the way.
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad. No, I mean, usually when I get on calls about people's with people I want to hear about, I mean, I've heard a little bit about like kind of, you're doing newborn photography and you're doing maternity photography. Apparently my brain stopped working.
Yep.
Uh, um, what area do you serve?
So similar, Central Ohio. So my studio is off of Polaris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Dublin, Westerville, all the way to Delaware, Lewis Center. Yeah, just that's big circle there.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, just anyone who's close to the Polaris area is where I'm at. So, and
Do
yeah.
you do just in studio or are you going like outdoors and in people's homes and stuff?
So for maternity, some people want outdoors depending on the weather and
Hmm.
you know if the foliage is nice. So I do some maternity. I'd say about half outdoors. Newborn, I really like. I prefer the studio. If they want posed, I because it's so much stuff. If it's in like a more of a lifestyle, like capturing the nursery and them holding their baby
Hmm.
on the couch, then I'll go into homes for that for sure. So it depends on what kind of style they want, but what I really specialize in is like the posed babies,
Okay.
where I get them super just comfortable and back to like where they're just like being curled up and warm and
Yeah.
posing them while they're super sleepy and just ate and like just let the mom relax for a few hours while we handle our baby. So that's what I really specialize in and what I like to do. But yeah, it kind of depends on what they want. If they want that kind of service though, then I need them to come to me because I'm not
Yeah.
putting my whole studio in the car.
No,
So
I don't blame you. I
yeah.
used to do massage and for a while I was carrying my table around and like, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot. Yeah. And I
I've never
love
really thought
I
about
would
like it being sort of a like relaxing situation for a mom because I was so anxious with my newborns that like I always imagined it being just like this super stressful situation. I probably would have stressed out the photographer, to be honest. I probably would
No,
not have
that's
been.
one of the things we really like is to get, so normally mom feeds the baby and then she just has a couple hours. I have a bed there if she needs a nap. There's like tea and coffee and snacks and it's dark, it's quiet.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, I prefer them to really just take a couple hours and just get get a break, you know? Like
You really need to tell more people about that part. Honestly,
yeah,
honestly, especially with newborns, because people are so exhausted.
I
And like
know.
if they trust you enough to like, do that, I mean, that would have been a big deal for me. Like,
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I don't know if I had the money for it, but like that would have been really like, oh, this is actually accessible to me because I will
Yeah.
actually not have to be a hot pile of mess the whole time.
Right. Well, and I had somebody once call me the morning of and they said, "We've just had a really rough morning. The baby's cranky." And I'm like, "Just get here. Like if you can get
Mhm.
here, we'll take care of you. We'll take care of the baby." And then the baby slept, mom rested. I'm like, you know, because otherwise it would have continued to be that way, you know, because
Mhm.
they were feeding off of each other, their
Oh
energy. It
yeah.
was just chaotic. It was going to continue to be a chaotic day. So she got a 3 hour like break of calm by coming in. I'm like, if you just get here, we'll do the rest, you know?
Nobody's
But
talking about that. Like,
yeah,
honestly, I've not, like, this is the first time I've ever heard of like that part of newborn sessions.
yeah,
That's really
there's
cool.
a lot. And if you forget, the only thing I don't have is formula because every baby's on so much different stuff
Oh,
and it
yeah.
expires. But everything else, they forget diapers. I've got diapers, I've got a bottle warmer, a fridge full of stuff. So I do try to make sure that they don't have to think. They can just show up and then we'll take care of them from there. So yeah, thank you for asking. I do.
That's so
I
awesome.
love
I love
connecting
it.
with moms, and it was because of my experience. I love giving birth, and it's sad that I only get to do it twice,
I
because it's
know.
such an amazing
I
thing.
hear
And
you.
it's like, oh, man, I can't relive that moment ever again.
Yeah.
So
Do
I,
you do birth photography ever, or are you staying in the newborn
so
setting?
I've been in the room twice with two of my really good friends, and they both ended in C-section.
Sure.
I would love to. They both did push, so I got some pictures of them like with the light and pushing and stuff, but they only got to like 4 centimeters and they were exhausted in it,
Oh.
unfortunately. But even one tried to do vaginal, and she's had Ralph's vaginal after C-section, and she
Yeah.
still only got to 4 centimeters, and it's like, yeah, this isn't going well. Um, so I would love to, but as you know, with I was going to actually ask you about this, I forgot. With my husband's schedule, I can't just up and leave for a birth with my own
Yeah.
kids.
It's
Um,
hard. Yeah.
but I would love to do that because I love being in the room. I love just capturing all of that. One of them, well, for both of them, I did stick around and got pictures of the baby and them meeting the baby and all that. But I'd love to be in there for more births. So I'm hoping maybe one day when my kids are older and can drive themselves to school and that kind of thing, then I can start
Yeah.
offering that more. But right now, I can't guarantee that I'll be available because
Right.
my
If
kids
you
need me.
leave, there's nobody to take the kids to school. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, how
I
do you do that? Or what's your
I
support system like?
have, first of all, like, my husband has an incredible job where he works from home like a lot. Like, sometimes he works in the office more often, but like, I would say normally, like, he's here, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Now he's working, so if the kids have to be home all day, like, I always have the option, like, there's a person that does childcare during the school year that lives right next to the school. So like, he can just drop them off at her place and then she takes them to the school.
Oh,
And
that's
it's
nice.
like $40 for both of them. It whether no longer, like, no matter how long they stay. So like, that was an amazing find. And I worked
Yeah.
really hard. Like, we moved a lot before we bought this house, so I worked really hard. I was like in mom groups, like, hey, this is my situation, like, I need
Yeah.
as many childcare providers as possible so that I can, but anyway, and
Have
then
backups for your
over
backups.
time I've made stay-at-home mom friends too, so that's been really helpful. In fact, my husband was out of town and I had to send my kids to two separate houses to stay overnight so that I could go to a birth. So
Wow.
like, all of these things felt very out of reach for me, but I literally just like dove in. It was like, I'm gonna find these people,
Yeah.
these people that will be willing to do this. And like, it just worked out.
That's
It kind of just
awesome.
had to work out. And honestly, I was willing to like be like, all right, if I have to call backups too often, this might not be the right lifestyle for me, but I'm gonna try it.
Hmm.
I've never had to call a backup. Um, but I always have them just in case.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, if you want to send me anything that you want me to throw in the boxes, just let me know and I'll either pick them up or you can drop them off, however you want to do it. I will talk to you soon and have a good rest of your day.
Awesome. You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.